What's going on, guys? I'm back with another video. This is going to be the first video of the year. I'm going to get straight into it. I'm going to kind of back up to start a new year because I think that that's a good place to start, is, no pun intended, where I started. The more I've had conversations in my comment section, the more I thought about it, the more I've seen other people's videos, just the more I've kind of seen how things are in the community. I feel like a lot of times we don't know the backstory. We just see that $500 or $600 knife that somebody's putting on the table. We just see the excellent sharpening skills of that master sharpener. We just see the end result of a lot of time, years, research, and educating ourselves. And we don't know necessarily the process. And I think that sometimes can give off the wrong perception. So before I ramble too long, because it's already been a minute, that's why I have this knife on the table. And let me start right off one little ramble real quick. This is not a video about country of origin. This is not a video about steel. This is not a video about hardness. This is not a video about feature sets on a knife. This is purely a video to kind of paint the perspective of where I came from. And I may do a second video about kind of the process to where I'm at. But this is purely about this knife that I got and how I started how I got serious about knives, so to speak. So I'll back up even a little further, and then I'm going to hurry up and speed up and move on. My very first knife was a Boy Scouts knife that belonged to my father. Got that when I was about 4. I don't know where that knife is at. I wish I could put my hands on it, but that was my very first knife. I carried some cheaper knives through middle school and high school. Eventually, sometime between middle and high, I even got some dumb stuff like one of those stupid survival knives from the back of the Boys Life catalog. It came with a little, came with the whole survival kit. You unscrew the handle, it was a compass, and it had fish hooks and thread and all that junk. Sorry about that, my battery died. I thought I could make it. But the survival knife had fish hooks, all that junk, that trash, including a little small sharpening stone. So again, I'm kind of trying to move quickly. I went from those things to, we're early 2000s. This was 02, 03, 04. I don't know why, but I woke up one day and I said, you know what? I want to get serious about carrying a knife. I want to carry a knife every single day, and I want to actually go out, look at some knives and spend, you know, what at that time I thought was not a significant amount, but a fair amount on a knife that I was going to carry every day and was going to serve me well through that time. So fast forward, went on a little family trip up to Concord Mills. And I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the Southeast, but Concord Mills is up by Darlington Motor Speedway, which, if you're familiar with NASCAR, which that broadens that out a little bit because people in the Midwest like NASCAR too, you know where Darlington Motor Speedway is. Anyway, maybe about 20 minutes from Darlington Motor Speedway, there's Concord Mills. It's a huge outlet mall type place. And there they have a huge Bass Pro Shop. And that Bass Pro Shop is where I got this knife. So I'm going to tell you this process. And again, this is to show you everybody has a story of origin. So just because you see expensive knives or you hear information that person has learned over years, everybody started someplace. So I walk in the store. I know I want a knife. I immediately go to the knife section. I walk up and down the aisles. They had some knives obviously in the case. I don't remember all the brands they had, but it was like Gerber, Buck, CRKT, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So this is literally what I did, guys. I walked the aisles. I didn't even go to the case. Well, I just walked past the case, but I walked up and down the aisles. I looked for the knife that caught my eye, and I would pick it up and I would feel how heavy it was, literally. So ended up, long story short, this was the heaviest knife that had the aesthetics that I liked. Therefore, that meant that was the knife that I bought. And what was that knife? That knife is a knife that I've posted a picture of this already on my Instagram on Friday the 4th. So I don't know when this video will come out, but on Friday the 4th of January 2020. And it seems like this is a very popular model. This is the M1601KZ. I picked this knife up and I carried this knife from that point forward. cut with it, scraped with it, pried with it, did all the things that new knife guys do that you shouldn't do with a knife. I did it with this one. That lasted for a few years. Eventually, like everything, you know, I kind of started getting more knives. However, I had another first with this knife. In that process, I'm horrible with time, guys. So a few years after I got this knife, I also picked up a Wicked Edge, which is why it is sporting this, fashionable, beautiful edge here. And that's total sarcasm if you're not picking up on that. So this was also the first real knife that I sharpened with a Wicked Edge. And by real knife, I mean it wasn't, you know, some $4 or $5 kitchen knife I got at Walmart or some 20-year-old steak knife that was laying around in a drawer somewhere. This was the first knife that I spent money on, and I cared about how the knife came off of that Wicked Edge. So the first question I would have if I was you guys is, if you had this knife for years, you're saying you used it, and you at least are telling us you sharpened it on the Wicked Edge that one time, it still has a sharpening choil, and it doesn't look like it has too much recurve or anything crazy like that. The profile is still pretty much the same as a new blade. How does that happen if you've had this knife and used this knife for years? That takes me to another kind of area of this. I started off just like everybody else. I knew knives needed to be sharpened. I didn't have anything to sharpen a knife with, nothing that was decent, even decent to sharpen a knife with. I just had that little stone that came with that Boys Life survival knife, and I did not know how to use it. So, like thousands and thousands and thousands of guys, I got a knife, I used it and used it even when it was dull. I just kept using it, and eventually one day I got a sharp maker, and I think I've sharpened this a few times on that, and I could not stand the sharp maker. I didn't like that motion, that holding the knife like this and then going down each side of the rod standing up. I couldn't stand that motion. I know I could have stuck the stone in the side and used it like this. Again, at the time, it was very early on. I'm impatient. I want results. The medium and the fine stones cut very slowly. I got the diamond stones. The diamonds fell off because I was using too much pressure. Just like I said, all the noob stuff that everybody goes through, but for whatever reason is not discussed. Everybody has an origin story, and this is mine. So the first real edge that was on here was from the Wicked Edge. Put a decent edge on there, but you can see, if I can get it to focus, even though this knife has been sitting to the side and it did not get much use because I had moved on to some other knives, you can see the roll in the tip there, and there's several other rolls. I don't know if I can get them to show up on the camera. And I believe this angle is 15, it's either 15 or 17 degrees per side. That's pretty much standard for how I sharpen, and you know, it is what it is. This video is not about steel type. It's not about the feature set of the knife. It's not about country of origin. It's not about any of those things. This is just purely my origin story and how I got started with knives. So this is the first knife that I seriously carried every day for, again, I'm bad with time, but I'd say maybe 4 years, 3-4 years or so. It served me well. It did its job. It held up. And this was the first step on my journey to a quote unquote expensive knife. You can even see, I just noticed the knife even has lost the pocket clip. Oh well, guys, I'd love to hear your knife that got you started. And I know there was a tag sometime back, I think, that was similar to this, the knife that broke me or something like that. I think I'm coming at it from a slightly different angle. I'm not going to tag anybody, but if you don't have a YouTube channel, I'd love to hear your story below. If you do have a YouTube channel, I'd love to hear your story below. I'd also love to hear your story on video if you have a YouTube channel. So I appreciate you guys watching as always. I hope you guys' year's off to a great start. Remember, a lazy man carries a dull knife.